At 19 years old, Ethan and Lily had exactly $43, a dead car, and each other. No family, no home, no phone, no address, no one in this world who would notice if they disappeared tomorrow. They had aged out of foster care 14 months earlier, and the system that had warehoused them for 14 years had handed them their freedom the way you hand someone an empty bag and call it a gift. 2 words. Good luck. That was the entire goodbye. They had been living in a sedan that smelled like mildew and gasoline, eating, when they could, starving, when they could not, drifting from town to town like something the current had picked up and forgotten to put down. And on any other Thursday, the story would have ended right there. Two more invisible kids on the side of a road nobody was driving down on purpose. But this Thursday was different. Because this Thursday, their car died outside a town they had never heard of, and they walked in with nothing, and they found an auction selling off things nobody wanted. And Ethan raised his hand and spent 10 of their last dollars on a 42-foot rusted fishing trawler that had not moved in 8 years. A boat whose captain had vanished in the middle of the night. A boat the entire town called cursed. A boat that a man with harbormaster stitched on his chest had spent 8 years praying nobody would ever touch. The auctioneer laughed. The crowd shook their heads. The harbormaster went white. And 3 days later, when Ethan and Lily pried open a sealed compartment hidden deep inside the hull of that boat, what they found, locked in the darkness, was not rust or rot. It was a dead man's journals. 30 years of secrets, evidence of a crime that had been covered up for nearly a decade, and proof that the quiet old fisherman everyone had forgotten was the one person who had been secretly holding this entire town together, dollar by dollar, envelope by envelope, for longer than Ethan and Lily had been alive. Someone in Cedar Point had buried that truth inside a steel hull and prayed the ocean would swallow it. They were wrong. Steel does not forget. And neither do the people nobody thought to look at. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one. And if today's story touches your heart, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. But that moment in the hull came later. First came the highway. The sedan died at 2:47 on a Thursday afternoon in early October. No warning, no sputter, no slow fade. 1 second the engine was running. The next second, silence. The kind of silence that does not just mean something is broken. The kind that means something is over. Ethan guided the car to the shoulder and sat there with both hands on the wheel while the engine ticked and cooled. 5 months they had lived in that sedan. 5 months of sleeping with the doors locked and the windows cracked, just enough to breathe, but not enough to let anyone reach in. And now the ticking stopped, and the car was just a metal box on the side of a road that went nowhere in both directions. Lily was in the passenger seat with her journal open on her lap. She had been making a list of towns within walking distance that might have day labor. She was always making lists. She had been doing this since she was 14 years old, in a group home where nobody was going to teach her how to stay alive. So she taught herself everything from library books and pamphlets and manuals. She learned how to read a lease, how to change a tire, how to stretch a dollar until it screamed. She closed the journal. How bad Ethan turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Bad, he said. A truck passed, doing 60. Then another. Nobody stopped. Nobody ever stopped. That was the first lesson the foster system taught you. People drove past. They saw you on the shoulder and they calculated the cost of carrying, and they decided it was too high. They gathered their things, 2 backpacks, a sleeping bag, a plastic bag of clothes. Everything they owned fit in their arms, and the total weight was less than 30 pounds. "Walk where Ethan asked." Lily pointed down the highway. A green sign read, "Cedar Point 3 miles." They left the car unlocked with the keys on the seat. Ethan took one last look. Not because he was sentimental about the car, because he was sentimental about the idea of having a door you could close between yourself and the world. Cedar Point appeared around a bend, a small town built on a natural harbor. Half the storefronts on Main Street had brown paper taped over their windows. The kind of finished that does not come back. "Looks like it is dying," Lily said. The only place that looked alive was a diner on the corner. A hand-painted sign read, "The Compass Rose." They went in. The bell jingled. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain looked up. Her name tag said May. "Sit anywhere, sweethearts," she said. They slid into a booth and did the math they always did. Scanning prices before descriptions. 2 coffees and toast. $3 and change. May came over with 2 glasses of water. She saw the backpacks, the sleeping bag, the way they were studying, the cheapest section of the menu. She saw all of it, and she did not say a word about any of it. "Kitchen just made a fresh pot of chowder," she said. "I made too much. If you two would do me a favor and help me finish it, I would not have to throw it out." They both knew what was happening. This woman was feeding them for free and letting them keep their dignity while she did it. "We would not want you to waste it," Lily said. May brought 2 bowls of chowder, thick and hot with bread on the side. She brought coffee without being asked. Then she walked away and let them eat in peace, which was the final kindness, the kindness of not standing there watching people be grateful. When they were almost finished, May came back. "You two passing through our car died on the highway. 3 miles back. You have people here." "No, ma'am." May made a decision. Ethan could see it click behind her eyes. "There is a surplus auction down at the harbor this afternoon. They are selling off some boats this year, ones that have been sitting too long." "We do not really need a boat," Ethan said. "A boat has a roof," May said. 5 words. The most important real estate advice Ethan had ever received. She picked up their empty bowls and walked back to the kitchen without looking back. "She is not wrong," Lily said. The auction was at 2 o'clock on the main pier. A folding table, a portable microphone, about a dozen locals in lawn chairs. The auctioneer worked through the lots quickly. Then he got to the last one. His voice dropped. "Final item, Lot 17. The Iron Lady. 42-foot steel-hulled fishing trawler. Last registered owner Captain Arthur Webb. Status, missing, presumed dead. Vessel has been moored at Slip 14 for 8 years. Opening bid is $100. Nobody moved. 50. Nothing. 25. Nothing. $10. Come on, folks. The scrap metal alone is worth more than 10. Silence. A man shook his head. A woman near the front muttered the word "cursed." Ethan looked at Lily. She was staring at Slip 14. The Iron Lady sat low in the water, streaked with rust and barnacles. But the hull was steel. Not fiberglass. Not wood. Steel. Steel hulls did not rot. They did not crack. A steel hull was a promise, and Ethan had spent his entire life looking for something that kept its promises. "Going once at $10, the auctioneer said, reaching for his gavel. Ethan raised his hand. Every head turned. The auctioneer blinked. Sold. $10. As they walked toward the folding table, Ethan noticed a man standing at the back of the crowd, arms crossed. Windbreaker with harbor master stitched on the chest. Late 50s. Thick-necked. He was staring at the Iron Lady, and his face was white. The white of a man watching something he had spent 8 years preventing happen right in front of him. His name was Warren Cross. Ethan did not know that yet. He did not know that Warren had been counting on nobody buying that boat, that Warren's entire career and freedom was balanced on one assumption, that the Iron Lady would sit in that slip until whatever was sealed inside her hull disappeared forever. And a 19-year-old kid with $10 had just knocked the whole thing over. They signed the paperwork. Ethan counted out $10 in ones and coins. "Slip 14, the auctioneer said. "Good luck with her." "Good luck." The same 2 words the foster system had given them. But this time, Ethan did not hear it as a goodbye. He heard it as a dare. They walked down the dock toward slip 14. Behind them, Warren Cross was already moving toward his office with his phone in his hand and his jaw clenched tight. Because the thing he had been afraid of for 8 years had just happened. Someone had finally bought the boat. The Iron Lady was bigger up close. 42 feet of scarred steel, a forward deck crusted with gull droppings, a wheelhouse with windows so clouded by salt you could not see through them, a stern working deck with old rope coiled in a corner. Ethan tested the gangway with his foot. It groaned, but held. He stepped aboard. The deck shifted under his weight. The Iron Lady adjusted to the presence of a human being, the way a sleeping animal adjusts when someone sits on its bed. Lily followed. They looked around. Everything was covered in grime and neglect. But underneath all of it, the deck was solid. When Ethan knelt and knocked on the hull plating, it rang back firm and true. No soft spots, no thin patches. 8 years of sitting still, and the bones of this boat were good. "The engine will not work," Lily said. "Maybe not, but the hull does. And it has a cabin." They found the cabin door. The lock was stiff, but it turned. They stepped down into the belly of the Iron Lady. A galley kitchen with a 2-burner stove. A bench seat with storage underneath. A fold-down table still folded down as if whoever sat here last had gotten up and never come back. Beyond the main cabin, a forward berth with a dry mattress. The whole space smelled like old wood and diesel and salt. Not pleasant, but not rotten, just neglected. Lily ran her hand along the galley counter. "This was someone's home," she said. "It is ours now," Ethan said. They spent the afternoon cleaning, washed down the deck, cleared gull nests, scrubbed the galley, opened every window and hatch. By evening, the Iron Lady was not pretty, but she was livable. Ethan got the propane stove working. Lily found canned soup in a cabinet. They heated it and ate at the fold-down table while the last daylight came through the wheelhouse windows. It was the second meal they had eaten that day. "When is the last time we ate 2 meals in one day?" Lily asked. "Raleigh. The shelter. 3 months ago." They slept in the forward berth that night. The mattress was thin and the blankets were their own. But the space was enclosed and dry and out of the wind. For the first time in months, Ethan did not wake up every 2 hours to check the locks. There was a steel hull between them and the world, and steel does not break easily. Steel does not change its mind about protecting you because the funding ran out, or the foster family decided they wanted a different kid. Steel stays. The next morning, they started working. Ethan spent the morning in the engine compartment. The diesel was a mess of corroded fittings and seized valves, but nothing was cracked beyond repair. It just needed someone patient enough to take it apart and put it back together. Lily cleaned the rest of the boat and found a manual for the water system stuffed behind a panel. Around noon, May appeared on the dock with a paper bag. "Brought you lunch," she said. She looked at the scrubbed deck and the open hatches. "You know the stories about this thing, right? We heard the word cursed at the auction," Lily said. May smiled. Arthur would have gotten a kick out of that. He was the least haunting man you ever met. Quiet as a stone wall, sat at my counter every morning and ordered black coffee, and never said more than 10 words. What happened to him? The smile faded. Nobody knows for certain. He went out on the water one night 8 years ago, took his skiff, not the trawler, never came back. They found the skiff drifting 2 miles offshore. Empty. No body, no note. He was 74. Did he have family, a sister? Helen. Little gray house past the post office. May looked out at the harbor. Arthur was here my whole life. This harbor was not the same without him. A lot of things stopped working right after he left. She said goodbye and walked back toward the diner. Ethan watched her go. "She knows more than she is saying," Lily said. That evening they explored the lower hold beneath the main deck, narrow, low-ceilinged, 2 inches of bilge water, mostly empty. Lily moved along the port side with a flashlight checking for damage. She stopped 2/3 of the way forward. Ethan. He came over. She was pointing at a section of hull plating. It looked like every other section. Same rust, same rivets. She knocked on it. Solid. The same dense ring as every other plate. Then she moved her hand 6 inches to the right and knocked again. Different. The sound was shorter, deader. Something was behind the plate, absorbing the vibration. Ethan got closer. The seams between this plate and the ones around it were smoother, neater than the original welds, and along the bottom edge a thin line of marine epoxy. Someone had sealed this plate shut. "There is something behind this wall," Lily said. Ethan pressed his ear against the plate and knocked again. The dead sound came back. Something solid. Something heavy. Someone had hidden something inside the hull of this boat. Someone who knew what they were doing. Someone who wanted it found, but only by someone who was paying attention. The harbor was dark outside. They climbed out of the hold and stood on the deck in the cold October air. Whatever was behind that plate had been waiting for 8 years. Tomorrow morning, they were going to open it. But someone else in this town already knew what was hidden inside the Iron Lady. Someone sitting in a harbor office at the end of the pier, watching their boat through a window, wondering what those 2 kids were doing in the lower hold with a flashlight, and that someone was not going to wait much longer to find out. They went to the harbor workshop at first light, a concrete shed at the end of the pier with a padlock that did not lock anymore. Ethan found a flat pry bar, a cold chisel, and a rubber mallet. Lily grabbed a flashlight with fresh batteries. Back on the Iron Lady, they climbed down into the lower hold. The sealed plate waited in the shadows. Lily held the flashlight. Ethan knelt in 2 inches of bilge water and positioned the chisel at the top left corner where the sealant met the frame. The marine epoxy was tough. The first blow did nothing. He adjusted his angle and swung harder. A hairline crack appeared. Then a chip broke free. Then another. 20 minutes for the first 6 inches. Underneath the epoxy, the plate edge was clean. No rust. No corrosion. Whoever had sealed this compartment had prepared the surface first, sanded it, primed it. This was not a quick patch job. This was preservation, the work of a man who knew exactly what he was sealing inside and wanted it to survive. Ethan worked his way down the left side across the bottom, up the right. Lily helped pry the last section free. The steel groaned and came forward. She caught the plate before it fell into the bilge. Behind it was darkness. A cavity, about 3 feet wide, 2 feet tall, 18 inches deep, built between the inner hull plating and an outer frame. A space invisible on any standard inspection. The walls were smooth, primed and painted. The air coming out was different. Drier, cooler, preserved. And sitting on a small wooden shelf bolted to the hull frame was a chest, dark green, heavy-duty, waterproof. 2 brass latches and a 3-digit combination padlock. Ethan pulled it out carefully. Maybe 20 pounds. He set it on the floor of the hold. They knelt beside it. "Locked," Lily said. Ethan tried the obvious combinations. 0, 0, 0. Nothing. 1, 1, 1. Nothing. Then he looked at the plate they had removed. He aimed the flashlight at the inside surface. Something was scratched into the metal. Small. Precise. Numbers etched with a sharp tool. He wanted someone to find it, Ethan said. Someone who looked carefully enough. He dialed 714. The padlock clicked open. Inside, everything was wrapped in plastic. 3 leather-bound journals, thick with use. A manila envelope stuffed full of papers. A smaller envelope of photographs. And at the top, lying on everything else, a single sealed letter. The front of the envelope read, in careful handwriting, "To whoever finds this." Ethan opened it. 2 pages. Lined paper torn from a notebook. He read it aloud, his voice quiet in the hold. "If you are reading this, you found what I hid. Good. That means the Iron Lady is still afloat, which means she outlasted them, which is exactly what I built her to do. My name is Arthur Webb. I have been a fisherman in Cedar Point since I was 16 years old. I am writing this on March 14th because tomorrow I have to leave, and I do not think I will be coming back. There are people in this town who want me gone, people with authority. I know things they do not want known, and I made the mistake of telling them I knew. Everything the town needs to know is in these journals. Every dollar, every name, every date. The financial documents in the envelope will confirm what the journals describe. If you are reading this, it means they got what they wanted. I am gone, but the truth is still here. Do with it what I could not. The Iron Lady is the key. Whoever holds her holds everything. God bless you for looking. Arthur Webb." Neither of them spoke for a long time. The bilge water dripped. The hull ticked in the morning sun. "He knew he was going to die," Lily said quietly. "Or he knew he would never come back. Either way, he planned for this." They took the chest up to the main cabin. Lily spread a towel on the fold-down table, and they laid everything out. Ethan opened the first journal. The earliest entries were dated over 30 years ago. Fishing logs, household records. Simple, direct, unadorned. Arthur wrote like a man keeping track of the truth. Then about 60 pages in the entries changed. October 21st. Heard from May at the diner that Bobby Garland cannot make his dock payment this month. Medical bills from the surgery. I went to the harbor office after hours and paid it. Told the clerk to mark it anonymous. Bobby does not need to know. He just needs to keep fishing. Ethan turned the page. November 8th. Put $200 in an envelope and slid it under the Alvarez door. Their youngest needs glasses. Did it after dark. Maria will think it came from the church fund. December 14th. Paid the back taxes on the Henderson property. 3 years overdue. $412. That is most of what I saved this season, but the Hendersons have 4 children and nowhere else to go. Page after page, year after year. Arthur Webb had been doing this for over 3 decades. Anonymous cashier's checks to the electric company. Cash in envelopes slid under doors at midnight. He paid funeral costs for a deckhand who died without insurance. He funded a local girl's nursing school tuition, 4 years of payments with no return address. He covered a widow's mortgage for 6 months after her husband drowned. He was not rich. The fishing logs made that clear. He caught what everyone else caught sold at the same prices. but his own expenses were almost nothing. He lived on the Iron Lady. He ate what he caught. He wore the same clothes until they wore out. The gap between what he earned and what he spent went into other people's lives. Quietly, anonymously, for 30 years. A journal entry near the end of the first volume stopped Ethan cold. Being invisible does not make you useless. It makes you free to do what is right, without anybody watching. He closed the journal and sat back. He saved this town, Lily said, for 30 years, and nobody knew. Nobody was supposed to know. They opened the second journal, and the tone changed completely. March 7th. Harbor Maintenance Fund balance does not match the posted statement. Short by $6,400. Asked Warren about it. He said it was a clerical error. March 22nd. Checked again. Now the shortfall is $8,000. Warren filed an amended statement, but the original line items do not match the amendment. He changed the numbers after I asked. Arthur had been methodical. He photocopied bank statements. He compared posted budgets against actual expenditures. Over 2 years, the pattern became undeniable. Warren Cross had been siphoning harbor maintenance funds, over $90,000 across a decade. Docks that were supposed to have been rebuilt were still rotting. Seawalls budgeted for repair were still crumbling. The money had vanished. The third journal was the most urgent. Entries, sometimes daily. June 15th. Confronted Warren at his office, told him I had the records. He went white. Then he got angry. Said I was an old man who did not understand how budgets worked. June 23rd. Warren came to the boat at night. Said if I went to the county with what I had, he would make sure I regretted it. Said he could have my slip revoked, my fishing license pulled. I told him to do what he needed to do. July 9th. 2 men I did not recognize came to the dock. They stood on the pier and watched me work for an hour. Warren was at the harbor office the whole time, watching from the window. July 14th. Warren offered me $10,000 to hand over the records and forget everything. I told him the harbor families deserve better than a thief. August 2nd. Warren leveraged an old debt from 12 years ago. A loan he made me after Ellen died when I could not cover the funeral expenses. He says I still owe him. The final entries were written fast, the handwriting less controlled. September 10th. I have decided. I am sealing everything in the Iron Lady. If something happens to me, the boat will outlast us all. Steel does not forget. September 12th. Called Helen. Told her I have to go. She tried to argue. I hung up before she could talk me out of it. The last entry. September 12th. Tomorrow I leave. I do not know what happens next. I am 74 years old and I have spent my whole life on the water. If that is where I end, it is not the worst place. Ethan closed the third journal. Lily had the manila envelope open. Bank statements circled in red. Photocopied checks. Harbor budget documents highlighted in yellow. Photographs of crumbling infrastructure beside invoices claiming the repairs had been completed. This is evidence, Lily said. Real evidence. Enough to prosecute. Enough to get a 74-year-old man run out of his own town. A knock on the hull. May was on the dock with another paper bag. She climbed down into the cabin and saw the journals spread across the table. She went still. We found something, Lily said. In the hull. Captain Webb left it there. They told her the first part. The 30 years of anonymous giving. When they read the entry about Bobby Garland's dock payment, May closed her eyes. Bobby Garland. That was my husband. He had surgery on his back in '97. We could not make the dock payment. And then the harbor office told us it had been paid. Bobby always thought it was the church. It was Arthur, Lily said. May wiped her eyes once and was steady again. He sat at my counter every morning for 30 years. Black coffee. Never said more than 10 words. Every Christmas, somebody's tab would be paid off, and nobody knew who did it. It was him. It was always him. What else is in those journals? The last 2 journals are different. About money that went missing from the harbor. About someone who was stealing from the town. May's expression sharpened. Who? We are not ready to say that yet. May stood up. You two are 19 years old. You bought a dead man's boat for $10. And now you are sitting on something that could shake this town apart. Be careful who you trust with this. She climbed back onto the dock and walked toward the diner without looking back. That evening, Warren Cross made his move. He walked down the pier in a pressed shirt and clean pants, the outfit of someone who wanted to look reasonable while saying something unreasonable. I am Warren, harbor master. I wanted to make you an offer. That boat needs a lot of work. I would be willing to buy her from you. $5,000. Cash. Lily made a sound that was not quite a laugh. You want to buy a boat? You just let go for $10, $5,000. The same kind of offer Warren had made to Arthur. Different number, same transaction. Buy the silence. Make the kids disappear. We are not selling, Ethan said. Warren's smile faded into the first tightening around the jaw. Think about it. $5,000 is more than fair. You could buy a car, get back on the road. He turned and walked back toward the harbor office. His right hand was clenched at his side. He had tried money. They had said no, which meant pressure was next. 2 days later, a notice appeared on the wheelhouse door. 3 harbor safety code violations, 72 hours to comply or face condemnation and removal. Nobody had inspected the boat. Nobody had come on board. They walked to Warren's office. Lily put both hands flat on the counter. We need access to the harbor safety equipment locker. We will get fire extinguishers and life vests. And we will fix the bilge pump. They fixed everything in a single afternoon. The bilge pump was a stuck float switch. A 10-minute repair. That evening, on the deck, Ethan said the thing he had been thinking. We could take the money. $5,000. Buy a car. Drive south. We have survived this long by not making enemies. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that changed everything. Nobody fought for us, Ethan. Not once, not the caseworkers, not the foster parents, not the state. And that is exactly how this town treated Arthur. He spent 30 years saving people, and they forgot him the second he was gone. Nobody fought for him. She turned to face him. That is not our fight, Ethan said. But he said it the way you say something you want someone to argue against. Yes, it is. Because we know what it feels like to be the person nobody sees. We are holding the truth in our hands. If we leave, Warren gets away with it. The town never learns what Arthur did for them. His sister spends the rest of her life wondering. And we spend the rest of ours knowing we had the chance to make something right. And we walked away. She paused. Nobody ever fought for us. Maybe that is exactly why we have to fight for him. If you have made it this far into Ethan and Lily's story, hit subscribe, because what happens next is the part I have been waiting to tell you. The next morning, Ethan sat on the deck with the third journal open to the last page. We are staying, he said. Lily sat down beside him. What changed? I read his last entry again. Steele does not forget. He trusted the boat to carry this. He trusted that someone would come along and do what he could not. We are here. We are that someone. Helen Webb lived in a small gray house past the post office at the edge of town, where the streets ended and the salt marsh began. The yard was tidy. A bird feeder hung from a hook on the porch full of seed. The mailbox said Webb, in faded paint bleached almost invisible by the sun. Lily knocked. Ethan stood behind her holding the first journal against his chest. The door opened. Helen was a small woman in her late 60s, white hair cut short, reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. Her eyes were the thing Ethan noticed first. They had the look of something that had been waiting so long it had forgotten what it was waiting for, but had not stopped waiting. She looked at the journal in Ethan's hands. Her hand went to the doorframe, flat, steady, the way you place your hand on something solid when the ground underneath you has started to move. "You bought the boat," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "And you found what he left." It was not a question. Helen let them in. The house was small and clean. Photographs on every surface. Arthur Webb, at various ages, living his life across the walls of his sister's house. The only museum he would ever have. "He called me the night he left?" Helen said. "September 12th. He said he could not stay. He said he had hidden everything on the boat. He said not to worry. That was the last time I heard his voice. 8 years. "Did you know what he hid?" Lily asked. "I knew he kept journals, and I knew something was wrong at the harbor. He said Warren Cross was stealing. He said he had proof, and he said Warren was threatening him." "Did you go to anyone?" "With what?" "The proof was on the boat, and I could not get on the boat." After he vanished, Warren impounded the Iron Lady. He filed paperwork claiming the harbor was owed back docking fees. He blocked every attempt to move her, sell her, or board her. 8 years of paperwork designed to do one thing: keep everyone away from that boat. She looked at the journal on the coffee table. "I did not even know about the auction until it was over. A woman at the grocery store told me 2 young people had bought Arthur's boat. She said they looked like they were living out of backpacks." Helen picked up the journal. She opened it to a random page and read silently. Her lips moved with the words. She was not reading for information. She was reading for his voice. She stopped on a page near the middle. "November 3rd, she read aloud. "Henderson family is about to lose their house. County says they owe $412 in back taxes. I went to the clerk today and paid it. Told them to mark it anonymous. Henderson has 4 children. Where are they supposed to go?" She closed the journal and held it against her chest. "I did not know about this. He helped a lot of people," Lily said, "for over 30 years. Nobody knew." "He was not a soft man," Helen said. "He was hard and quiet, and he did not suffer fools. But he saw people. He saw what they needed, and he did something about it, every single time, without anyone knowing." Ethan told her about the embezzlement, the confrontation with Warren, the threats, the 2 strangers on the dock, the offer of $10,000 for silence. Helen listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I always knew Warren had something to do with Arthur leaving, the way he avoided me in town. He has not made eye contact with me in 8 years. She looked at them. "You have the proof now, but you are 2 kids. Nobody in this town knows you. Warren has 22 years of connections. Documents can be dismissed. He could say you planted them." She paused. "I am not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying it because you need to understand what you are walking into." "There is something else," Lily said. She opened the journal to a page she had marked. "The Iron Lady is the key. Whoever holds her holds everything. I have named no person, only the vessel. The rightful, registered owner of the Iron Lady has access to the trust. A trust, Helen said. He set it up so that whoever owned the boat would have access. Not a specific person, the vessel. Helen stared at the photograph of Arthur on the shelf. He planned for this. He planned for someone like you. The entry mentions a bank branch in Beaumont, Ethan said. About 40 miles from here. Go, Helen said. Find out what he left. And then come back and tell me everything. The bus to Beaumont left at 7 the next morning, $3.50 each way. They brought the Iron Lady's registration, Arthur's letter, and the deed. $22 left after the bus fare and a padlock for the cabin door. The branch was a small brick building on Main Street. A woman at the front desk looked at them the way every person in every institution they had ever entered had looked at them. She saw two teenagers in worn clothes and made an assessment that was probably accurate about their net worth and probably inaccurate about their worth. A branch manager took them to his office. Ethan laid out the registration, the deed, and Arthur's letter. The manager read everything carefully. He typed something into his computer. And then he went quiet. There is an account here, a trust established by Arthur Webb 8 years ago. The trust is structured to benefit the rightful registered owner of the vessel Iron Lady. Not a person by name. The vessel. Whoever is the legal owner serves as trustee. We are the registered owners, Lily said, sliding the deed across the desk. The manager checked the vessel identification number twice. He asked for their IDs. This will take a few days to verify and process, but the trust appears to be legitimate. Mr. Webb set this up with considerable care. He paused. The pause of a man about to say a number that is going to change the lives of the people sitting in front of him. How much is in the trust? Ethan asked. Mr. Webb contributed to this account consistently for over 25 years. He also directed his investments through our managed portfolio. The trust balance, as of this month, is $412,000. Ethan did not move. Lily did not move. The number hung in the air the way a bird hangs at the top of its flight the moment before gravity remembers. $412,000. Saved and invested for 25 years by a man who lived on canned food and 3 shirts. The same man who slid envelopes under doors and paid strangers' bills and never bought himself anything except black coffee every morning for 30 years. The trust has specific distribution guidelines. The manager continued, the funds are to be used for the benefit of the Cedar Point Harbor community. Infrastructure repair, emergency assistance to fishing families, educational support. The registered owner of the Iron Lady serves as trustee. Arthur had not left this money for Ethan and Lily. He had left it for the town. A final safety net that would outlast him. They took the bus back to Cedar Point. When they got back, they went straight to Helen's house. She opened the door before they knocked. She had been watching the road since 7 in the morning. They told her about the trust. When they told her the amount, her hands went still in her lap. He never told me about that, she said. He told me about the journals. He told me about the evidence. He never told me about the money. He spent his whole life giving it away in secret, Lily said. The trust was the same thing, just bigger. Helen looked at Arthur's photograph. He was not rich. He just never stopped. The next morning, Lily woke at dawn and sat at the fold-down table with Arthur's journal open beside her own. She was making a list, the longest list she had ever made. Things to do, people to tell, evidence to file, a town to save. We need to take the financial documents to the county, she said, and we need to call the newspaper. Ethan picked up Arthur's letter. He read the last line one more time. Do with it what I could not. Then let us do it, he said. They took the 7 o'clock bus to Beaumont. with the financial documents in a folder Lily had organized the night before. Every page in chronological order. Every piece cross-referenced with the corresponding journal entry. When you walked into an office with an organized file, you were not a person with a complaint. You were a person with a case. The county clerk listened with growing attention. She looked at the documents. She asked questions. She made copies. She told them an investigation would be opened. On the way out, Lily stopped at a payphone and called the Beaumont Register. She told the reporter she had information about financial irregularities in the Cedar Point Harbor Administration documented by a fisherman who had disappeared 8 years ago. The reporter asked to meet the following day. She said yes. The story ran 3 days later. Front page. Below the fold. Harbormaster accused of decade-long embezzlement. Cedar Point fishermen's hidden journals. Detailed secret generosity and financial fraud. The article told 3 stories at once. Warren Cross's embezzlement over $90,000 confirmed by the county inspector. Arthur Webb's 30 years of anonymous giving verified through 4 families the reporter tracked down. And Ethan and Lily, 2 foster care teenagers who had bought a cursed boat for $10 and found the truth sealed in steel. The town's reaction was not what Ethan expected. He had braced for anger at outsiders stirring up trouble. What happened was silence. And then the silence broke. Pete Alvarez walked into the Compass Rose. Someone paid for my daughter's eyeglasses when she was 8. An envelope under our door. $200. I always thought it was the church. He looked at Arthur's photograph in the newspaper. I read the article this morning, and I know. Clara Henderson sat in May's booth and cried. My parents almost lost our house. Back taxes. 3 years overdue. And then it was paid. My parents told me a government program covered it. There was no program. There was an old man in a boat who could not stand watching 4 children lose their home. Maria Reyes called the newspaper from the county hospital. 4 years of nursing school tuition from a source she never identified. She had told everyone it was a national scholarship fund. It was a fisherman who ate canned soup and wore 3 shirts and had never spoken more than 10 words to her. The stories kept coming. For 3 days, people discovered that the quiet moments of grace in their lives had all come from the same man. The same man they had barely noticed when he was alive and forgotten the moment he was gone. May called Ethan and Lily to the diner. They sat in the same booth where they had eaten chowder on their first day. Bobby's medical debt, May said. After his surgery, I thought we were going to lose everything. And then the harbor office said the balance was paid. I cried for an hour. I always thought it was a billing error. She looked at Arthur's photograph on the counter. He sat right there, every morning, for 30 years, and I never once looked at that man and saw what he was. Nobody did. Ethan said, that is the point. He did not want us to know. He wanted us to be okay. That was enough for him. Warren was suspended 4 days after the article ran. The county inspector confirmed every discrepancy Arthur had documented. The numbers matched perfectly. Ethan went to see Warren alone. He sat at Warren's kitchen table. Warren poured 2 cups of coffee without asking. I am not going to explain myself, Warren said. I know what I did. Then why did you do it? The harbor was dying. Revenues dropped every year. The town cut our budget. I was supposed to maintain everything on half the money I needed. So I borrowed from the fund. I told myself I would put it back. Things never got better. My daughter was in college. My wife had left. The harbor fund was sitting there, and nobody was looking at the books except me. He paused, and Arthur was looking. Arthur! That old man sat on his boat and watched everything. He came to my office with a folder of evidence and told me to stop. I panicked. I threatened him. I used a debt he owed me from when his wife died. I brought in men to intimidate him. I did not think he would leave. He did not back down. He left, and he never came back. You let the town forget about him, Ethan said. You let his boat sit there for 8 years. You let his sister spend 8 years wondering. I filed the paperwork to protect myself. I knew what was on that boat. I knew if anyone found what he left behind, my life was over. I was right about that. Ethan stood up. Arthur Webb spent 30 years paying this town's bills from the cabin of a boat you let rot at a dock. He did it with the money he earned fishing the same water you were supposed to be maintaining with the money you were stealing. Whatever you started out to do, this is where it ended. He walked out. He did not slam the door. He just left it open behind him. That evening, Helen came to the harbor for the first time in years. She walked to slip 14, put her hand on the Iron Lady's hull, and stood there for a long time feeling the steel warm from the sun. I want to read the last entry aloud, she said. At the harbor, where people can hear it. May organize the gathering. People came. Not dozens. 25. Pete Alvarez. Clara Henderson with her mother. Maria Reyes in her scrubs straight from a shift. Dock workers. Shop owners. Fishermen. People who had been helped and people who had not. Helen stood at the edge of the dock holding the third journal open to the last page. Her voice was clear and steady. I have decided. I am sealing everything in the Iron Lady. If something happens to me, the boat will outlast us all. She paused. She looked at the water. She looked at the town. Steel does not forget. She closed the journal and held it against her chest. Nobody spoke. The harbor was quiet, except for the water and the wind and the gulls. May was the first to move. She walked to Helen and put her arm around her and stood beside her and did not say a word. Ethan and Lily stood on the deck of the Iron Lady and looked down at the faces of people who were seeing them for the first time. Not as two homeless teenagers who had bought a cursed boat, as the people who had carried Arthur's truth out of the dark and into the light. The county charged Warren Cross with embezzlement and misappropriation of public funds 2 weeks after the article ran. Arthur had built his case the way he built everything else. Carefully, patiently, without a single gap. The county inspector told the Beaumont Register that in 20 years of investigating financial irregularities, he had never seen a case so thoroughly documented by a private citizen. Warren cooperated fully. He provided access to his personal records, his bank accounts, his correspondence. He sat in an interview room and talked for 6 hours. He described every withdrawal, every diverted contract, every amended budget statement. He described how a small amount during a lean year became a larger amount that became a pattern, that became his life. He described the night Arthur left, how he had watched from his office window as Arthur's skiff moved through the channel in the dark, its running light a single white point moving toward open water. How he had sat in his chair and watched that light until it disappeared, and how he had known that the light was not coming back. He did not make excuses. He said, I knew what I was doing and I did it anyway. That was the most honest thing Warren Cross had said in a decade. The hearing was held in December. Warren pleaded guilty. He read a statement without hiding behind lawyers or technicalities. He described the embezzlement in specific terms. Amounts, dates, methods. He did not use the word mistake. He used the word choice. He said every choice I made was wrong, and the person who suffered most was the person who deserved it least. The judge sentenced him to 18 months and 5 years of probation. His harbor master certification was permanently revoked. Cedar Point did not forgive Warren quickly. Small towns hold grudges the way harbors hold water. But they heard him. They watched a man stand up and say what he had done, and some people thought that was worth something. The evening after the sentencing, May made a plate of food and left it on Warren's doorstep. No note, no words, just a plate covered in foil on a cold December night. The same thing someone had done for her family years ago when an anonymous envelope had appeared and Bobby's medical debt had vanished. She did not know it was Arthur then. She knew now, and she understood that the chain of grace does not stop because the person who started it is gone. It just passes from one set of hands to the next. May left the plate and drove home and did not tell anyone she had done it, because she was learning what Arthur had always known, that the best things you do are the things nobody sees. Winter settled over the harbor, but the harbor was alive, more alive than it had been in years. The Hale Harbor Trust had been formally established 6 weeks after the bank visit. Helen was on the board. May was on the board. Lily managed the books with the same meticulous precision Arthur had kept his journals. The trust's first act was funding emergency repairs to the main pier. Pilings that had been rotting for years were replaced. 3 dry-docked fishing boats returned to the water. A new fuel dock pump was installed. The seawall on the north side was reinforced with concrete that would hold for decades. The repairs were pilings and pumps and concrete, the invisible infrastructure that keeps a harbor functioning the way bones keep a body standing. Nobody notices bones until they break. And the bones of Cedar Point's harbor had been breaking for a decade. Now they were being rebuilt, one piling at a time, the way Arthur had rebuilt other people's lives, one envelope at a time. A marine mechanic named Carl Jenkins gave Ethan a job. Not charity, a job. Ethan walked into his shop and told Carl he could rebuild a marine diesel. Carl pointed at a seized outboard on the bench and said, "Show me." Ethan had it running in 2 hours. Carl hired him that afternoon. The work was steady. The pay was honest. Carl taught him things the library books had not covered: electrical systems, hydraulic steering, marine electronics. In return, Ethan worked the way Arthur had worked, quietly, consistently, without the need to be seen doing it. Lily was studying for her GED at the county library in Beaumont 3 days a week. She was also managing the trust's bookkeeping, tracking every dollar, filing every report. The numbers made sense to her the way engines made sense to Ethan. Numbers were honest. Numbers did not lie or pretend to be something they were not. May's diner was busy again. The fishing families were coming back. She hired a second cook and extended her hours. She put Arthur's photograph behind the counter next to the cash register. Nobody asked her to hang it there. Nobody asked her to take it down. Helen visited the Iron Lady almost every day. She sat in a folding chair Ethan had placed in the wheelhouse, and sometimes she read from the journals, and sometimes she just watched the boats come and go. He would have liked this, she told Ethan once, not the attention. He would have hated the attention. But seeing the harbor work again, that would have made him happy. Do you miss him every day? But it is different now. Before I missed him and I was angry. Now I miss him and I am proud. The whole town knows what he did. That matters. She paused. He was the kind of man who carries the world on his back and never asks for help. That is a hard way to live. But when he was gone, the weight did not disappear. It just got set down. And now other people are picking it up. People like you. Ethan and Lily fell into a routine. The first real routine of their lives. Not the routine of survival. The routine of building. Ethan walked to Carl's shop every morning. Lily took the bus to Beaumont, or stayed aboard with the trust accounts. Evenings they cooked dinner in the galley. Simple meals at the fold-down table, where Arthur had eaten his meals for 30 years. They talked about what they were building. Not the trust, not the harbor repairs. What they were building between themselves. The foundation of a life. The daily act of showing up and staying, and not running when the old instinct kicked in, the instinct that said, "This is too good, and something is about to go wrong, and you should leave before it does." They were learning to ignore that instinct, learning that staying was not the same as being trapped, that the difference between running and staying was choice. And choice was the one thing the foster system had never given them. "Do you remember the car?" Lily asked one evening. "The sedan? I looked it up. It is in an impound lot in the next county. We could go get it." Ethan thought about it. That car had been their home for 5 months. "Leave it," he said. Lily smiled. A real smile. The first unguarded smile he had seen from her since the group home. "Yeah, leave it." Helen came to the boat on a Saturday morning in late January carrying a paper bag. Inside was a photograph in a simple wooden frame. A young man standing on the deck of the Iron Lady, maybe 30, lean and strong, hands on the rail. The harbor behind him full of boats and life. "That is Arthur," Helen said. 1978. The day he bought the boat. He was 30 years old. He stood right there and said, "Helen, this is where I am going to live." She handed the frame to Ethan. "He would have liked you too. He always had a soft spot for people who refused to quit. You remind me of him, not the giving part. You have not had anything to give, but the stubbornness, the refusal to accept that the world is right when it tells you that you do not matter." Ethan set the photograph on the shelf above the galley next to the porthole where the morning light came in. That afternoon they took the Iron Lady out of the harbor for the first time. Ethan was at the wheel. His hands found the 2 worn spots where Arthur's palms had rested for 30 years. Lily was on the bow with her face into the wind. Helen sat in the wheelhouse chair with her hands folded in her lap. The engine ran smooth and strong. The diesel that had been dead for 8 years was alive again, because a teenager who had taught himself engine repair from library books had taken it apart piece by piece and put it back together the right way. They went a mile offshore, maybe 2, just enough to see the town from the water, the docks, the rooftops. The compass rose small from this distance. The gray house at the edge of town where Helen had waited 8 years. The town looked different from the water. Smaller, more fragile. The kind of place that could disappear if nobody took care of it. Arthur had taken care of it for 30 years, and now 2 people he never met were carrying that forward. They turned back toward the harbor. Ethan eased the Iron Lady through the channel and brought her alongside slip 14. He cut the engine, and the boat settled into her mooring with a slow, familiar creak. Helen climbed off and stood on the dock. She looked at the Iron Lady. Freshly painted. Engine running. Alive again. "Thank you," she said. She was talking to the boat, or to the man who had built his life on it, or to both. She walked back toward her house without looking back. Ethan and Lily watched the harbor settle into evening. Fishing boats coming in through the channel. May sweeping the diner porch. Carl's shop light glowing amber. The fuel dock humming. The seawall holding. Lily had her journal in her lap. A new list. Things to fix. Things to learn. Things to build. Things to remember. The list was longer than any she had made before, because for the first time the future was not something to survive. It was something to build. A $10 boat and a dead man's journals, Ethan said. That is what it took. Lily closed her journal. That is not what it took. It took us. It took two people who knew what it felt like to be invisible, who knew what it looked like when nobody cared. That is what it took. She looked at the Iron Lady. Arthur spent 30 years being invisible. We spent our whole lives being invisible. And that is exactly why we were the ones who found him. Because we knew where to look. We knew that the things that matter most are always hidden in the places nobody thinks to check. Behind the walls, under the surface, inside the hull, inside the people nobody sees. The harbor was dark now. The water was still. A buoy bell rang somewhere far out. The same bell Ethan had heard on their first night aboard, when they had eaten canned soup and slept in the forward berth and felt steel between themselves and the world for the first time. The Iron Lady rocked at her mooring, gentle and steady, the way she had rocked for 8 years while she waited, patient, unbreakable. She was not waiting anymore. None of them were. The people nobody sees are usually the ones holding everything together. Arthur knew that, and now so did they. And if you are still here, if you have stayed through the whole story, through the highway and the auction and the bilge and the sealed plate, and the journals and the trust and the truth, then you know it too. The most important things in this world are not the things that announce themselves. They are the things that work quietly in the dark. The things that hold without being asked. The things that carry without being seen. The things that are built from steel. Because steel does not forget, and neither will they.